Satan and Lucifer have different origins in real-life mythology, but to many people, they are just two names for the same person. In Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss, they are of course separate characters ruling over separate areas of hell, but that wasn't always the case in the development of the story. So today we're going to be talking about everything we know about Satan, his differences from Lucifer, and the real-life history that came to associate the two with each other, even in the early versions of Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. This is the first in a big deep dive series I'm going to be doing, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos like this one, and come hang out with us in our Hazbin Lore Discord server. Links, as always, are in the pinned comment down below. Satan has not appeared on screen, as far as we know, in Hazbin Hotel or Helluva Boss, but there are plenty of references to him in Helluva Boss so far, and some fans believe that in the Hazbin Hotel pilot, this silhouette may be Satan himself, and possibly his son Damien next to him. Perhaps this was meant to tell us that the Satan family is very close to the Morningstar family. When Satan does appear in Helluva Boss, or maybe even in Hazbin Hotel, I expect his design to be pretty updated. In this silhouette, he has imp-like features, but I expect those to be more pronounced in his final design, and I also expect him to be a bigger and more muscular character than he seems to be in this silhouette. This would fit the trend we are seeing of demons who are either thematically connected to the prince of their ring, as is the case with the succubus and Asmodeus, or are even visually similar to their prince, such as the skeleton jesters we see in the backgrounds in recent episodes. These skeleton jesters are theorized to come from the Greed Ring, which is ruled by Mammon. While we haven't seen him in person, he's depicted on Hell's currency as a jester-themed demon, with these skeleton jesters seemingly taking inspiration from that. When Blitz shows us his Hell phone screen, we see various apps, with 7 being references to the 7 princes. Satan's app is a workout-based app whose imagery indicates that Satan is something of a roided-up imp. As far back as the Helluva Boss pilot, we saw that Satan seems to have some special relationship to imps, with a homeless imp revering Satan similar to God while begging for money. In future episodes, characters like Moxie would continue to use Satan the same way someone would use the word God as an exclamation. All of this worship of Satan, despite the fact that he is outranked by Lucifer. Blitz has indicated that he is not from Wrath, and other imps seem to exist throughout the 7 rings, but Wrath comes off as a sort of home for all imps, with imps who say they aren't from Wrath, like Blitz, just being from families that immigrated from Wrath long ago. The imps hold their sin of wrath in high regard, and pride their ability to fight and kill above all else. They talk about wars being waged in hell, with the implementation of angelic weapons changing the battlefield, but don't really say who the war is against or why. Yet on top of the farming work that imps of Wrath take part in, there seems to be ample working opportunity as hired guns for warlike missions. This leads me to believe that Satan perhaps fuels conflict and war up on Earth by making his Wrath imps disguise themselves as humans and fight in battles. Despite the annual extermination, there does seem to be a push to continue getting more souls from Earth down in Hell, with Stolas even using his grimoire to affect things on Earth, and other floors of the IMP office building being used for their own missions up on Earth as well. While we don't know who sent Vraska and her gang of succubi up to Earth to seduce humans, I would bet Asmodeus would be in charge of this, the same way I imagine Satan would be involved with the imps, even though none of them get any of these sinners for their own use in their rings, since Lucifer keeps them restricted to the Pride Ring. Despite the reverence imps seem to have for Satan, he didn't lower himself to appear at the Harvest Moon Festival, something a prince of the Ars Goetia like Stolas did instead. So it's hard to say how much he really cares about his people in Wrath, even with them creating the food that feeds all of Hell, on top of whatever war missions he has them going up to Earth for. Before creating Hazbin Hotel, its characters were all side characters intended to be in a later arc of Vivziepop's webcomic titled Zoophobia. The comic took place in a world where most of the supernatural elements of reality had been hidden away from humanity in a place called Safe Haven, though the story would occasionally make use of characters from Hell, namely the son of the devil, Damien, who goes up to Earth to attend a school in Safe Haven. In the first volume of this comic, we would see a little bit of hell from Damien's life, including his father, who would go mostly by Satan, but sometimes Lucifer as well, like nicknames for the same person. The Hazbin Hotel characters were all just Earthborn sinners in this story, including Charlie, who felt they were unfairly turned to demons after death because they knew of people who were far worse, who did not get sent to hell. They would be fighting an angel and some hunters who worked for her while unraveling the conspiracy of why they are being targeted. This was planned to be a much later arc in Zoovobia's story, but Vivziepop's fixation with these characters led to her developing a new story around them in the form of an independent TV series, which we now have as Hazbin Hotel. The biggest change to the cast was of course Charlie, who is now the daughter of Lucifer, who has become a separate character entirely from Satan, with Lucifer of course being the king of all of hell, as well as serving as the prince of the Pride Ring in particular, and Satan seemingly being one step below him on the hierarchy as the prince of the Wrath Ring. Satan has a complicated history as a mythological figure in real life, as does Lucifer, with the history of the two crossing paths quite a bit. Satan first seems to appear in the Book of Job as one of the angels of God titled Ha-Satan, often translated as the adversary. While the bulk of the Book of Job contains some of the most ancient Hebrew language in the Bible, predating even that of Genesis, the portions that describe God talking with Satan, or Ha-Satan, are actually believed to come from a much later time of the Babylonian exile, and the Hebrews' subsequent return to Israel. Without the scenes involving Satan and God, the Book of Job is a very philosophical story about why we give thanks for our blessings, but why we do not blame God or existence for personally taking those away from us. Simple students of the time would still question why God would let such bad things happen in the story of Job, let alone in real life. What seems to have happened from this was a slow introduction over hundreds of years of Satan, or the adversary, who starts off as a naive child of God's just wanting to challenge people, and evolves into an executioner dealing out punishment on behalf of God, before eventually being called the devil in the New Testament itself. Satan would first appear as a figure who tempts Jesus in the New Testament with the kingdoms of the earth in return for denouncing God and worshipping him instead. In the book of Revelation, Satan, also referred to as the devil here, is described as a seven-headed dragon who covers a third of the stars in the sky and takes them down with him to earth when he is cast out of the heavens. The stars, of course, representing other angelic beings who rebelled with Satan. I would not be surprised to learn that the seven princes of hell in Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss can combine to a giant seven-headed monster when they want to. From here, Satan is cast into a fiery pit, leading to the very basic conception we have of the devil and the fiery depths of hell today. The current story of Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel uses a lot of different aspects of demonology and its history for inspiration in the shows, but one of the most notable examples of this is the Peter Binsfield classification of demons from the 1500s, which described Satan and Lucifer as separate beings, with Lucifer being the demon prince of pride and Satan the prince of wrath, just like in the shows. Despite this, the epic poems of Dante's Divine Comedy in the 1400s and John Milton's Paradise Lost in the 1600s depicted the devil figure as being called both Satan and sometimes Lucifer, leading to today where many people associate the two with one another. What is most interesting for Hazbin Hotel fans is that Satan is described as being the serpent who deceived the world in Revelations 12, inspiring the idea that he, or the devil, is the serpent from the Garden of Eden. In Hazbin Hotel, however, it is Lucifer who we see decked out with the apple and serpent imagery, indicating that he was the one behind the serpent in the Garden of Eden story. But how exactly Lucifer differs from Satan historically is something you'll learn about this in part 2 of this series, where I discuss the theory of whether or not Lucifer is the serpent from the Garden of Eden, and what his larger real-life lore really is. See you guys then.